All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Hiking My Feelings virtual campfire. My name is Sydney Williams. I am your hostess this evening. If this is your first time joining, the Hiking My Feelings virtual campfire is a fundraiser so we can build our Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center. And we are doing that here at the Reggae Ranch. We're in Julian, California, about an hour outside of San Diego, nestled on about 9 acres out here in the mountains where everything is lovely and nothing is terrible. So tonight we have some great guests. I'm excited to welcome Josh Kelley and Christine Smith. They are going to be part of a panel discussion first up to talk about the how we move from being a survivor or from a victim of domestic or sexual violence to survivor status to activist advocates and using your story to make the world a better place. So Josh is a progressive political consultant and Christine is a policy analyst for the Coalition to End Domestic Violence here in the state of California. So I'm really excited to chat with both of them. And we also have Zion Ide here tonight. He is currently at the protest in the Bay Area. So we're fingers crossed that he is staying safe and not running into any shenanigans out there. I'm hoping that that's a peaceful protest, but he's going to be chatting with me tonight about why lyrics matter and how music can help us heal. I was first introduced to Zion Ide's music when they were on tour with Revolution back in 2018. So if you're just joining us here on YouTube, if you're new here, we are collecting money for the Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center. We are also raising money for the American Diabetes Association and for RAIN, which is the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization. So 80% of the funds we raise from this event will go towards the construction of the Wellness Center. We're going for $30,000 as our first milestone that we're working towards. And I want to show you while we chat about where the money's going, phase one of the construction. So what you'll see on your screen now is phase one, and that includes a 32-foot by 32-foot deck. And on top of that is a 24-foot diameter geodesic dome. And that will serve as the hub for all things community at the Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center. So all of our online programming, which I have a fun announcement today about that. So make sure you stick around towards the end. All of our online programming will be hosted there. That's where we'll film. That's where we'll host all of our lives from. We'll also use that space as base camp for all of our workshops, retreats, backpacking trips, and all of our day hikes as well. So we have currently raised $7,729 of the $30,000 that we're going for so far. This is campfire number 9. So we're averaging just under $1,000 a day if we want to split it out like that. So if you are on YouTube and you find value in what we're chatting about tonight and you want to help us get a little bit closer towards our goals, we would appreciate your support, and you can donate at hikingmyfeelings.org/give. And if you decide that you want to join us for the whole kit and caboodle, we would love to have you join us. And you can get tickets to the Hiking My Feelings virtual campfire, which gets you into the Zoom meeting. So we do a pre-chat before the show starts. In the chat, in the Zoom meeting, that's where our guests or our donors can ask questions for our guests. We also host a group gratitude circle every night where we share what we're grateful for. So and you can be entered to win or entered to receive prizes and gifts from our partners and sponsors. So if you like what we got going on and you want to get tickets, you can get those at hikingmyfeelings.org/campfire. And a note on the VIP all access passes, we only have 5 of the VIP virtual campfire kits left. So if you're one of the first 20 people to donate $250, then you are you can choose to receive the VIP kit, which includes a candle, a signed copy of the book, some facial oil from Spell Botanicals, a white sage mist from Sundance Vibes, a s'mores print Kula cloth, and one of these beautiful pendants. This is a pendant from Nick. He's the lead singer from Ayaterra. And he sells these as crucial crystals. And so this one is Blue Appetite, and this one is making my day very, very good. It is my birthday too. So if you want to, if we were friends and you wanted to take me out for a drink, throw a couple bucks towards the Wilderness Wellness Center. If you think you'd rather buy me a coffee, just chuck a couple bucks that way. I'm hoping that we can cross over $8,000 tonight while we're live. So help us make that happen, because that would be the best birthday gift ever. So without any further ado, we are going to be reading from chapter 8, and that is On the Couch watching The Bachelor. So if you're just joining us for the first time, chapter 7 was called Big Leather Chair, and it's all about how I really wanted to save my family. So we invited my whole family out to Southern California. They live in Florida. And I flew them out like thinking I was like the biggest, best adult. And I was so excited to have them come see where I live for the first time since I moved out in 2007. And my sister and her boyfriend decided they were going to get married. And then I went home for her wedding. And I realized that a lot of the stories that I've been telling myself, that I'm fat, that I'm dumb, that I'm a bad person, that I'm the B word, that all of that was rooted in things that she had said to me while we were growing up. Sisters being sisters, young girls generally being pretty terrible to each other. I internalized all of that as my truth. So now we're starting on page 103. If you're following along in the hard copy, this is Hiking My Feelings, Stepping into the Healing Power of Nature. I wrote it. We're about to read it. So here we go. On the couch watching The Bachelor. When we got home from my sister's wedding, I jumped right back into work. The first 2 weeks of January felt like 2 years. Every day dragged on forever. I was in back-to-back meetings for 8 hours a day and barely had time to get my work done between calls, let alone eat, drink water, and take care of myself. I started having panic attacks. I couldn't peel myself away long enough to rest and recover. Now, not only was I managing NBC's email marketing, I was also the lead on a national commercial campaign. My stress was through the roof. There was one saving grace, however, a little pocket of inspiration. Between Thanksgiving and my sister's wedding, on my weekly train ride up to LA to work in the NBC offices, I shared a photo on Instagram, outlining my experience managing diabetes so far. It was the first time I had posted publicly about the disease, and within days of posting that photo, I was on the phone with a director and a producer from a medical media company. They wanted to follow me and Barry around for a few days and shoot a multimedia documentary about my life since being diagnosed with diabetes. In the times that I had off during my sister's wedding, I also realized that for my entire career, I had been teaching people how to numb. When I was managing email marketing for NBC, I wanted you to sit on the couch and binge watch TV shows. When I was launching a new wine brand, I wanted you to drink lots of wine. When I was writing hilarious hot dog puns as the Wienermobile on Twitter, I wanted you to eat lots and lots of hot dogs. And when I taught David Arquette how to tweet from a plexiglass box on top of Madison Square Garden, I was slinging Snickers candy bars. Everything I thought was a bragging point on my resume wasn't worth bragging about after all. I was a byproduct of the work I had been doing, sick, numb, and tired. Something had to change. Fortunately, my friend with the startup had run the numbers and said she was in a position to make her first hire. Between the agency being so stressful and watching my daily blood sugar readings continue to rise, I made the call. I accepted the offer to join the startup as chief marketing officer, and I would start in February. The diabetes documentary shoot was scheduled for January 19th. I wanted this shoot to be the beginning of the rest of my life. New job, new outlook, a clean slate. On January 18th, I called my mentor, Aaron, who was the CMO at the agency I was leaving. I didn't report to him directly, but he played a key role in reintroducing me to corporate America when I retired from skydiving, and I wanted to share the news with him first. He was appreciative that he was the first call, and of course, wished me the best of luck on my new adventure. After I explained my role and the opportunity I was accepting, he walked me through who needed to be notified next and how to go about doing that. I was a bit emotional during this call, as Aaron had been my first call for so many important professional milestones in my life. I expressed my gratitude for his continued support, and I hung up the phone. I felt like I lost another 100 pounds. I felt free. Immediately after that call, everything felt lighter. The commercial campaign didn't feel like life or death because I had chosen life. Later that evening, Barry and I had dinner with the production crew for the documentary. As we sat down at our booth in Juniper and Ivy with the director, producer, and photographer, I shared the story of how just a few months ago, I was crying over the menu at this restaurant, unsure of what the future would hold for me. In some classic get to know you questions, my photographer asked what I do for work. I shared that I had quit my job earlier that day to pursue a new role. The words chief marketing officer rolled off my tongue, and I felt so satisfied with myself. I had set an internal goal for myself to be a CMO by the time I was 35, and here I had just accepted a role with that title at 32. I savored the self-congratulatory feelings for all that it was worth. After so many years of trauma and pain, it felt good to feel good again. As dinner carried on, I knew we were in for a treat with this shoot. These folks were not the sleazy production types looking to sling products that nobody needs. They were storytellers, dot connectors. I knew I was in very good hands for this journey. On the morning of the first day of the shoot, I was showering, listening to my usual playlist, when a song came on that I didn't recognize. In fact, for the first 2/3 of the song, it didn't even register with me. One lyric jumped out, and it was a voice I recognized, Kyle from Slightly Stupid, a local reggae band. I was a self-diagnosed super fan of Slightly Stupid, and I was amazed that I hadn't heard this song before. The lyric? The choice is yours, the choice is mine. You can't please everybody all of the time. The song was Choice is Yours by a band called Stick Figure. After hearing those words in the shower, it clicked for me. I had been living my life. I had been living a life trying to please everyone, my family, my colleagues, my husband, my friends, and it wasn't until the day before hearing this song that I had chosen me. Sure, I had bouts of choosing things for myself here and there, but overwhelmingly, I was living my life for someone else. I had checked all the boxes. I went to college, I got my degree, I had a good job, I was making lots of money. But I wasn't happy, and I certainly wasn't healthy. It also hit me like a ton of bricks that it was my choices, good, bad, or indifferent, that got me here. Here, literally in this shower in our gorgeous bungalow in San Diego, 32 years old, having just quit a super cushy corporate marketing job to join my friend's startup as a newly diagnosed diabetic. The choice was mine. Diabetes empowered me to see that and truly understand it. As I became aware of the fact that I had a choice in everything I do, and as I made different choices, my life started to improve dramatically. The goal for the first day of this shoot was to get the interview portion done. As the trucks full of production equipment pulled up to the house, we ushered in the lighting and sound guys along with all of their equipment into the house. Our home had just turned into the set for the documentary. While they were setting up the room for my interview, the photographer and I went down the street to get some stills while the morning light was still soft. I had never done a photo shoot before, and it was brutally apparent. I was so awkward. Any expectations I had for a photo shoot was rooted in what I saw on TV or in movies. Of course, I had been part of shoots over the course of my career for commercial projects, but it was quite different being on the other side of the camera. I didn't know what to do with my face. I didn't know where to look. I didn't know what to do with my body or how to pose. Tom, my photographer, was kind, patient, and fortunately, insanely talented at his craft because at each location it would only take a few clicks of the camera to get what we wanted. I had envisioned fans blowing my hair like Beyonce, cameras clicking hundreds of times to get the shot, being produced and told to channel my inner lion or tiger and to flash my best blue steel. None of that happened. I just walked around the neighborhood, and when Tom saw the shot, he took it. Easy peasy. Over the course of the rest of the shoot, I felt so alive. After we wrapped on the interview, we collected B-roll. Shots of me sitting on the rocks looking pensive, of Barry and I riding bikes around Coronado Island, paddleboarding at sunrise, cooking at home, and all of it was magical. The most impactful part of the whole journey, however, was seeing Barry's interview portion. I have known since the day I met Barry that we have a special bond. I truly believe that we have been together for multiple lifetimes, and in each new iteration of my soul, I managed to find him. There is no other way I can wrap my head around the depth of the connection we share. Still, I'm human and I have baggage. To hear him speak about what it was like to witness me managing this disease, taking this mountain that is diabetes and breaking it into baby steps, was so powerful. To hear him tell the camera how much he loves me, how much he believes in me, and how he can't wait to see where I go from here was further confirmation that our connection is as strong as I knew it to be. And in the midst of hearing these words, I was reminded of the last time I felt so validated, so seen, so supported. Just a few months earlier, I had shared something with Barry that I hadn't shared with anybody else. We were on the couch watching The Bachelor. Judge me if you want, but I've learned a lot about what not to do in relationships by watching that garbage show. On the episode we were watching, the women were huddled up on the couch in the mansion. One of the contestants said something about an incident that happened to them and how they never really talked about it with anyone else because they're afraid of what people will think of them. Barry paused the show and turned to me. "Do you worry about that?" Barry asked me. "Worry about what?" "Do you not talk about things that happen to you because you're afraid of what people will think about you because it happened to you?" Barry asked. "Oh yeah, lots of stuff," I replied. Like how I was raped 11 years ago, I thought to myself. I can't believe how women are conditioned to not talk about things that happen to them, things that are out of their control. I could never judge a woman for something that happened to her, Barry responded. I realized in that moment, I hadn't felt safe enough to share that story with anyone. I was in my 20s when it happened, and on my couch some 11 years later, I truly felt the weight of that secret I had been carrying by myself for all of that time. At that point, I had been with Barry for 7 years, and I hadn't told him anything about it. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I buried that part of my life for so long. I swore I would take it to the grave. When we met, I had been having wonderful, healthy sex and figured if the act of sex itself didn't trigger me, then I definitely worked through all the trauma from the rape. And God knows I didn't want to scare this man away with my baggage. I didn't say anything that night, but my wheels were turning. Why didn't I tell anyone? I was a collector as a kid. It started with crystals and rocks and evolved to Backstreet Boys memorabilia and posters all over the walls of my room growing up, Pogs and Beanie Babies. I would save up my allowance from working with my father to buy the latest release and spend many hours in the front of the line of the local Hallmark store, as they were our local Beanie Baby dealer. I had a flashback to when I was a kid. I was in my childhood bedroom playing with my Beanie Babies. I had quite the collection and had recently built a village for my Beanie Babies out of old boxes, the latest iteration, including an elevator made out of an old Jones Soda six-pack container. One of the perks of the newspaper business were the sample bags we'd get from various brands throughout the year. When different companies wanted to distribute samples to a large population of people, they'd provide newspaper carriers with bags containing the samples. These bags were always of inferior quality to the heavy-duty bags we usually use for Sunday papers, which meant we had a lot of samples on the floor of the van by the end of the night. On the last sample run, each newspaper bag had an individually boxed bar of Irish Spring soap in it. Combining sharp cardboard corners with flimsy plastic bags was a recipe for sample disaster, and we had soap for years after that particular Sunday. My Beanie Baby village was almost complete. We just needed a place for the animals to eat. Knowing we had an abundance of small boxes of soap in the garage, I decided to fashion a trough out of a soap box. One of my knockoff Beanie Babies had sprung a leak, and the beans were all over the floor in my bedroom. One way to clean up the mess and recycle the busted beanie was to use the beans as food. Cannibalism wasn't on my radar as a kid, so this seemed like a logical solution. I made my way down to the garage, grabbed a box of soap, and made my way outside of the van so I could get a box cutter to open up the box and create the trough. As I held the box of soap in my left hand, I used the box cutter to remove one of the larger panels from the front of the box, leaving a wide, shallow trough where the animals in Beanie Baby Village could all congregate and feed. As I was cutting the final side, the knife slipped and sliced my palm open, about an inch long and deep enough to draw blood, but not require stitches. While I was trying to keep my hand from bleeding profusely, I made my sister swear to secrecy. I knew if she told on me, or if I went to get help for getting my hand cut, I'd get yelled at for being in the van without asking, and I'd get yelled at for using the box cutter and cutting myself. So I applied pressure until the bleeding stopped, and then grabbed some hydrogen peroxide, Neosporin, and a bunch of Band-Aids and dressed my wound. Back in the present moment, I thought to myself, wow, I knew at a very young age I'd get yelled at for sustaining this injury. Of course I didn't feel safe telling my parents about my rape. Over the next few weeks, I'd remember bits and pieces, understanding why I didn't tell anyone. I had been drinking the night before, and my friend insisted I stay at her place instead of driving home. I woke up the following morning with my rapist on top of me, a colleague from work. I took the longest shower of my life when I got home. I did what I had to do to get Plan B so I wouldn't get pregnant, and I committed to a lifetime of silence. Girls like me don't get raped. Work was a toxic battlefield. Every time I went into the kitchen, he was there, leering at me. I freaked out on multiple people, was short with customers, and found myself acting out in a state of trauma, unwilling and unable to articulate what happened to me. If I told my manager, would he believe me? Would I get fired? This was my job. Who would believe me? If I couldn't tell my parents, who could I tell? Who would be there for me? Who could I trust? A few weeks later, Barry and I were sitting on the couch again. Remember when you asked if women don't share stuff because they're afraid of being judged for what happened to them? I asked him, testing the waters. Yes, he said. Can we talk about something? Of course, he said as he turned off the TV. I took a deep breath and told him what happened to me. He held me close as I cried, recalling the details of the most violent thing that had ever happened to my body, mind, and spirit. I have never longed for a deeper connection with Barry. I've always felt like we were on the same page, even when this was still my deepest, darkest secret. But now that I had finally shared this, I felt free from the weight of it. I had been carrying this trauma silently for more than a decade. I didn't realize what a toll this had taken on my body until I felt the weight release after the words escaped my lips. I had sworn to myself I would die with this secret buried within me, and in this moment, to finally let someone else in, to break down the last wall I had built up, felt nothing short of revolutionary. To say that my husband is the most supportive man on the planet is the understatement of the century. As I continued watching clips of this interview portion, I was reminded of how lucky I am to share my life with Barry, with someone like Barry. We've been through some heavy times since we met. It's never been anything between us, but an onslaught of life events that have happened to us as individuals or around us. This is the stuff that, if you aren't committed to growth or if you're afraid of change, could completely derail a relationship. Every time something tragic happened, Barry held me through it. After I retired from skydiving, I struggled to find stable ground. I started to dive into personal development to try to find out who I was and what I actually cared about. When Barry lost his job in 2015, effectively ending his skydiving career, a calling that he had been tending to for more than 16 years, the transition was gut-wrenching. Watching the man who taught me how to save my own life have his passion ripped out from under him was brutal, and the months that followed could have killed our relationship or perhaps even ended our lives. As his time away from the sport got longer, we were both drinking more to numb the pain. We both gained 30 to 40 pounds in the 2 years that followed our departure from the sport. That fall, I stumbled into a business relationship with a woman that nearly shattered any shred of confidence I had left. Barry held me through it. After I pulled myself out of that hole, I got honest about what I wanted and in my life, and near the end of 2015, I accepted a contract with the agency I'd been working with before I started skydiving full time, and I told Barry to take as much time as he needed to figure out what he wanted to do next. Any of these things could have been the end for us. I had seen the demise of previous relationships over things that weren't nearly as serious, so it took a lot of faith on my part to know that this was not like those relationships. At the end of the day, each instance that could have ruined us brought us closer together. We figured it out. We always do. In watching his interview and chatting with the production crew, we discussed how relationship dynamics can change in the face of shocking news. Lifestyle changes can be taxing on a relationship if one of the partners has no desire to change. While I was the one with diabetes, Barry was all in on helping me manage the disease, and he didn't stop there. The fact that Barry was right by my side, applying the changes I was making for my health to his life was powerful. I didn't have to worry about different grocery lists. I didn't have to worry about temptation in the fridge or in the pantry. He was all the way on board. He stopped drinking alcohol when I chose to cut it from my life. He held me accountable. He joined me for the body weight exercises in the backyard. We started paddleboarding more frequently. He cheered me on as I continued to lose weight, and he supported me leaving the agency and the six-figure salary that provided for our family in order to prioritize my health. He was all in, which made it much easier for me to be all in. Having the opportunity to share my story with the team from the media company in this format was one of the most powerful experiences of my life. I was able to reclaim parts of my story that I had shied away from, particularly my athletic career. To see Barry's love reflected back to me in this way was potent and affirming. As we made our way to the last location on the final day of filming, I started to visualize what this next chapter of my life would look like. Our last location was Sunset Cliffs for a sunset shoot. I put on my new jeans and a purple sweater, the same shade of purple that was part of the brand colors for the startup I was joining, and I power posed all over Sunset Cliffs. I envisioned these images gracing magazine covers. The main reason I set the goal of being a CMO by 35 was so I could grace 40 under 40 lists and announcements for CMO of the year. I knew joining this startup was a good choice. I knew I could make a difference there. To know that Barry was behind me 100% made me even more excited for the transition. After the shoot, my last 2 weeks at the agency flew by. Before I knew it, Barry was dropping me off at WeWork in downtown San Diego for my first day on the job as chief marketing officer at the startup. I knew I was in for a wild ride by joining an early stage startup, but there is no way I could have predicted what would happen when I got there. Boom, shaka, laka. Hey, it's my birthday. That's a chapter, and it's kind of triggering. So if you're feeling feelings when I read, if you're feeling feelings during the discussions tonight, I strongly encourage you to take a note, write down what you're feeling, where you feel it in your body. And if you can, if this feeling is familiar, when was the last time you felt it and what caused the feeling then? Because as we go through this book and all these different campfires and all of our programming at Hiking My Feelings, we're able to connect those dots. So if you know that reading something about my sexual assault triggers something within you, maybe you have survived a sexual assault. And if you haven't consciously thought about that, but there's like that one time that something happened and you're not sure if it was assault or not, chances are it probably was. So as we start thinking about what it means to be a victim of these crimes, to a survivor of the incidents themselves, and moving into advocacy, using your story to make the world a better place, and activism, I'm really excited to bring Josh and Christine on. So Josh and Christine, welcome down. Come on down to the show. It's like The Price is Right. Just like hop on down, guess your number. So nice to have you here. So Josh is a political consultant, a progressive political consultant from Washington, D.C. We met at my D.C. tour stop, and I'm so thrilled to have you here. He is also a survivor of sexual assault, and he is using his voice and his story to advocate for survivors in the LGBTQIA plus community. And Christine is she's from Sacramento. I don't know if she's originally from there, but that's where we met. And then we hiked together in Reno, and she works as a policy analyst with the Coalition to End Domestic Violence here in the state of California. So Josh, Christine, hi, how are you? Welcome.
Good to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So Josh, do you want to tell me a little bit about your background in political consulting and how that has shaped your new projects and everything that you're working on right now?
Yeah, well, it actually, I mean, it's very good because even before politics, I was doing a lot of theater and sort of art making. And I think that's where it really began because I think the, the power of stories is so important and I think often overlooked, particularly in American culture. And so it's already from day one, I kind of grew up knowing how important stories were and sharing your voice. But ironically, I was always sharing my voice through someone else, right? Sort of putting on someone else's story, never really sharing my own story. But I knew stories were important. And then when I, decided to sort of jump into, jumping in 2016 was a very, the past 4 years of my life have been very different than what I thought they would be. But, it was interesting as I, entered this new space where there was, best practices and sort of ways of doing things in American politics and seeing how underutilized storytelling often is when we kind of know that that's the way to change hearts and minds and change policy, right? And so I tried to bring a lot of that sort of theatrical flair and sort of understanding of storytelling into my political work and sort of saw how much of an impact it has, right? I've done a lot of work on, LGBT, surprising no one, I've done a lot of work on LGBTQIA plus issues. And, I was really, by the time I got into politics, it was the year of trans people in bathrooms. I have talked about bathrooms way more than I ever thought I was going to. But what was interesting in all that advocacy is it's just the stories, right? Because when people don't know something, right, they don't understand it, or people are afraid to speak up because they don't understand that their story isn't unique. That happen, injustices happen to people all the time, right? And then that kind of, as I, and then the reaffirming of that, which sort of sparked my current healing journey, was hearing you, Sydney, right? Showing up to REI, hearing someone tell their story and doing, it's funny that you just sort of gave that sort of challenge to folks
Disclaimer,
who were
right?
Yeah, because that's like very much what happened to me. So like good disclaimer, because then, hearing you tell your story and, it was funny, to be honest, I didn't even really know what I was getting into. I didn't know much about you. It was like, oh, a free event at REI. That sounds cool. Life is stressful. I'm going to go like spend some time talking about my feelings in nature. And then lo and behold, all of a sudden, when you started to tell your story, I went, oh my God, that's me. Like this happened to me. And I had never really, I had played, right? Like there's those moments when that crosses your mind, right? That maybe that thing wasn't okay. But it wasn't until someone else shared their story with me that I was like, whoa, this is now a journey that I have to go on myself. And so it kind of, once I sort of did my own work, it sort of seemed natural that I was like, the powers of story, the power of advocacy is just in my blood. I was like, I can't do anything. I feel so obligated, to do that.
Right. Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And Christine, tell me a little bit about how you got into the role that you're currently in.
Sorry. So I work as a policy analyst for the California Partnership to End Domestic Violence. I actually, I did legislative work around healthcare prior to this. I used to work in politics. I did opposition research for a number of years and worked on a number of campaigns, and then was part of the great scourge of 2010 when everybody who was in my party lost and everyone was out of work. So I went to policy work, which is aligned and is a little bit more stable, and ended up working in healthcare, and then lost my job and ended up working in domestic violence. I think I applied for every single policy job there ever was. Did not realize that I was in a domestic violence situation when I got my job at the California Partnership on Domestic Violence. So a year later, I actually moved out of where I was living with a person who had been harming me. I was in a 5-year-long domestic violence relationship with a lot of emotional abuse, but didn't know what it was and didn't know why it wasn't healthy. Didn't really have the resources or the support. So I work for the statewide coalition. I do a lot of work around legislative policy and also getting funding and budget advocacy to really help people understand what it is and what domestic violence is and isn't, and really helping people share their stories to make an impact. So I do appreciate the work that I do, but yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, so I think I completely missed that memo when we were hiking and talking. I didn't realize that you found like through getting this job and then like being immersed in the world of domestic violence that that was how you identified that your situation was
Yeah,
problematic. Like that's thank God you got that job.
yeah, I was in a meeting and they were talking about, the basics of domestic violence because I was new to the field, and they were like talking about the cycle, and really it is, an event. If it's emotional, for me, it was a lot of yelling, and my partner would yell at me and tell me things that are not true, but I thought were true at the time. And then you kind of get like, I'm sorry, like it's a honeymoon period of like, I'm so sorry, like everything's going to be better, it's all going to be fine. And then you get back into like this eggshell part of the loop. And I was like, oh my goodness, that happens all the time. And my boss was just like, yeah, so like, that's not okay. Like, that's not appropriate. Like, you get that that's not something that should be happening, right? And I was like, no, I was just like, I just thought that like, that's how it's been for so long. Like, I've been in this relationship for so long. Like, of course, he just has like times, and he's upset, like something's going on. And then as you kind of work there and realize that like, that's not okay. That's not what should be happening. And it took me a while to kind of get out of that situation and get the support that I needed to leave. But yeah, I took a day off from my job at the California Partnership to End Domestic Violence to leave a domestic violence situation. So my boss was totally fine with me calling in sick that day to move out. But
I bet. Right?
She's like, oh, do you have a cold? Like, no, I didn't have a cold. I actually moved out of this situation. And like, here's, what precipitated that. And like, here's, how I left, and I moved out in the middle of the day, and here's kind of what was involved. And she's like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. What support do you need? How can we help you? Kind of thing like that. So great supportive environment, but not a situation you ever want to be in.
Yeah. So then as somebody that has worked there, has left a relationship while being an employee there, what kind of resources does the coalition offer domestic violence folks that find themselves in those kinds of situations?
So we actually don't provide direct services. We work with about 100 programs that do. So there's about 102 shelter-based programs in California. There's a large number beyond that doesn't provide shelter programs like brick and mortar programs, but provide counseling, provide a lot of programs, provide housing. But with California is so expensive to kind of create a shelter, get a space, things like that, are not able to kind of do shelter services for various reasons, or don't want to for various reasons. So there's a lot of programs that provide essential legal services, essential housing services, but aren't a shelter program. So we do provide a lot of referrals to those programs. We do work with training technical assistance with those programs. I do a lot of policy support so that not every program has to do their own policy advocacy, and we're a voice for them at the Capitol. So we work with a survivor advisory committee to make sure that survivors are really leading, and our work is informed by the voices of survivors and the voices of programs, because that's where all needs to start from. So all of our work is as survivor informed as possible.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for the work you do. That's so important. So Josh, tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing, because we had shared your campaign with Images Mail as a Hike My Feelings Family Friday feature, the first one. But for anybody that might not be familiar with that, like what happened after you went to my talk and you're like, oh God, this happened to me? Like, walk us through that journey, because you walked in there thinking you were going to talk about feelings in nature, and you walked out and you're like, I got a new path I got to walk down. Like, what was that like?
Like casually, like, right? It's sort of like we were talking about, you all of a sudden end up at the right place at the right time, and everything changes without any warning. So immediately, luckily around the time I had just started therapy, like by complete coincidence, happened to already have this resource accessible to me. And I was like, well, I guess I know what I'm talking about next week. And so started by, my therapist was floored. She was like, wait, you didn't lead with that? And I was like, sorry, just realized it. Sorry about it. And so I started working through sort of traditional talk therapy, but what I was finding is, you know, that was only part of the story, right? That my healing journey wouldn't be as simple as this sort of one healing tool, right? I like having a lot of tools in my toolbox, and especially, you know, obviously we all find, I think most people participating in this campfire understand the healing power of nature and being outside and sort of the meditative qualities. And so, you know, I engaged in that, but then you know, I'm a pretty regular yogi, you know, engaging in like breath work and Reiki, and like really sent my tentacles wide to try to get my head around, you know, how do I cope with this? How do I get this out of my body, right? I really appreciate what you said, Sydney, about the way that like trauma lives in our bodies. And that's why I started doing breath work, because there were these emotions that were in here and I didn't know how to get them out. So I just breathed them out, right? Through these sort of energy healing practices. And then as we were going, there was still this point where like, I couldn't connect to it, right? Like I'm a pretty emotionally disconnected person. So trying to break through those walls was very, very challenging. And as you know, my therapist kind of knew that I was open to lots of different ways of working through things. And she was like, what about art therapy? And I was like, I am so down with that. Because, you know, a thing that I kept saying was that, you know, I sort of knew my story, but I didn't believe my story. And it was that discrepancy that I couldn't figure out how to overcome that mountain. And so my therapist, knowing me very well, she like gave me an art assignment, and there was no rules. She was like, you just have to tell your story with art. You can do it any way you want, to what extent you want. And, you know, originally I was like, well, I have come from a theater background. I also am a drag queen. You know, there was a lot of performance-based ways I could have approached it, but I was like, that's not quite right. I need a different way to tell this story. And, you know, I was on Pinterest, like you do, sort of looking for inspiration. And this image came up of this man who was sort of naked, seated and naked, and he had words written all over his body. And there was something about that I was like, that's the story, that's the project. Like, I have this story and I have to actually physically put it on my body, take a picture of it, and then look at it to like actually recognize the story on myself. Because I guess I'm just that stubborn. And so, you know, I went through this process of conceiving the project. You know, as a prior therapy assignment, I had to write my story and read it to myself. And so I sort of broke that down and figured out like what pieces of my story would I put on my body and where, and sort of the symbolic nature of where these things were. And I think connected to why photography was important was, you know, although I certainly was having a healthy sex life, I think I had a lot of body shame, right? This feeling like my body wasn't good enough for other people. And I already sort of grew up with a lot of body image issues around my weight and, you know, just not looking like or acting like the other boys. I really couldn't win. And I was like, you know what? I just have to confront this all head on. Like, I am done being ashamed of my body. I am done not believing my story. And I'm going to create this photography project where I am the model, and I'm going to stand there naked in front of a camera with my story on my body. And like, it's just going to be made public. And I'm just going to do that. And I did. And although certainly not the most traditional way of dealing with this, it was very healing, because then in the process, you know, I happened to have been introduced to a photographer who specializes in nude male portraiture, but also had started shooting drag queens, which is how I sort of got introduced to him as a potential drag project that just never came to fruition, but I always knew I wanted to work with him. And I was like, you know what, this is the moment. Like, and I
perfect.
Right. Yeah. Like it all. And I think like sort of like what we've been talking about, right? Like, once you get the ball rolling on your destiny, you can't stop it, right? And the pieces started to fall together. The photographer was into it, and I said, all right, I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna get through this. And I showed up. I, you know, did the photo shoot, had to work through a lot of those feelings in real time, right? Sort of putting myself back in the mind space of those moments and kind of essentially recreating it, right? And being watched by complete strangers doing it. But it was so healing. And the thing that he did an interview with me after as a part of the sort of, we didn't know like what we were gonna do, but we were like, let's like do an interview or something. We're just gonna keep capturing moments and then we'll figure it out. And, you know, he was asking me, he was like, well, how was that for you? You know, he had done some trauma-informed photography before, particularly around weight and trans folks, and using photography as a way to sort of fall in love with your body again, and was wondering how I had experienced it. And I was like, you know what, for the first time, my story feels like it's mine. Like, he doesn't matter anymore. Like he like, because people keep always like sort of follow up with like, are you going to tell him? Are you going to confront him? Are you going to do something? And I'm like, no, like, it's not about him anymore. Like, this is about me. And like doing that project, I was like, this is my story. I own it now. Like, it's public, it's mine. No one can take that from me. And then once the
Mhm.
photos were out there, I was like, okay, I guess now that, after doing the project, I felt such a catharsis that I was like, okay, now is the time to share. Now is the time to, release those photos on Instagram. We created the web page for it. I started trying to, tell whether it's, opportunities like this that would pop up, or, I got to do a LGBTQ radio show in DC to talk about it, and just sort of being public and sharing the story, because, as soon as I started doing it, I sort of shared it through this artistic medium, and so many people would message me on Instagram and be like, hey, I see you. And like, that happened to me too. And like, thank you. And a lot of like LGBTQ people, particularly LGBTQ male identified folks. And yeah, so it just kind of became the gift that kept on giving, where I get to heal and help others heal all at the same time and make cool art. And I was like, this is just a win-win.
Feels good, right? Like, I love that
Yeah.
you said the part about reclaiming your story. And so one of the things that's like, that really just makes me so happy about all of this is like, the reason that I was able to start to articulate my story is because I heard other survivors tell theirs, right? Like, I didn't have the language to articulate what had happened to me, because my internal definition of sexual assault was everything you see in movies, right? If it's not in an alley with a gun to your head, violent perpetrator that you don't know, and you're like, this guy with a ski mask on, like, if it's not that, then it wasn't rape. So like, I, for the longest time, was like, one, girls like me don't get raped, because I fancy myself to be smart and intelligent and like on top of it, and I wasn't doing any of the slutty things that should have gotten me in trouble. So like, I just like denied it for a minute. And also, I didn't have, like, I knew I didn't want it. I knew that I woke up and it was happening and this was terrible. But because it wasn't a stranger and it was somebody I knew, I didn't know that it was assault. But I love what you were saying about making the story yours, because that, I legit, and like, this is why I love talking to other survivors. This is why I love to sharing my stories. Like, I've known what my mission was with Hiking My Feelings, as far as like the deliverables and what I wanted to accomplish on the organizational side. But for me, in my heart, the tour last year was making that story mine. Like, I told that story 70 plus times in front of other humans, online, in person, wherever we can. Just got swooped by a hummingbird. Sorry. I was like, wait a minute. So I was just like, this is mine. Like, I am standing up here in my truth, and nobody can take that away from me. And so, and with the writing of this book too, like, I have always wanted to be an author. I always wanted to share my story, whatever my story was. And I didn't ever know what my story would be until I was ready to tell it. But I was in such a hurry to get this story out in a book form, because I didn't want to wait 36 months or 2 years by the time you get a literary agent, write the manuscript, shop it out to different publishing houses. Like, one, I was really tired of waiting for anybody's validation. I didn't care. I was like, you know what? I'm going to self-publish. And if that means, like, somebody told me the other day, and I referenced this a couple campfires ago, that somebody said that if you self-publish first, then you'll never be taken seriously as an author and you'll never get published traditionally. And I was like, well, I got a book in my hand, so I think I'm an author. And also, like, that isn't true. Like, you can go and tell your story however you want. And if that's only telling your story to yourself, that's totally fine. Like, you don't have to go sell everything you own, move into a van that's old enough to buy beer, travel around the country, tell your story to anybody that'll listen. Like, that might not be your healing path, but art might be, or writing might be, or talk therapy might be. Like, there's so many different ways to heal and start to experience these things. So thank you for sharing about like your process of how you arrived at this campaign, because it's stunning. And actually, I'm gonna turn off my video for a second so I don't look like a weirdo, but I want to pull it up and share it, because this stuff is just so good. And see if I can do this. Is that okay with you? Do you mind if I share these?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the family-friendly version of the website. Do not worry. There are two versions of this project that exist.
Okay, good. I love it. Oh my gosh, I'm just so excited. So yeah, so this is, let me share my screen. So this is Images Mail, and this is Josh's campaign that he did with his art therapy. So I'm just going to scroll through it, but you can see the different ways that he had the story written on his body. And so this is Josh, obviously, and then the model that helped recreate some of the scenes. But I just love this: trapped, unmoving, suspended, powerless, quiet, unfeeling. Like, what were you feeling and thinking in these moments?
Yeah, I mean, so it was funny because a lot of the collaboration, like all putting my, so those are all my words that were coming from this sort of like document that I wrote. But what's really fascinating is, originally the words were just supposed to be on my body, but then the photographer was like, I don't know, I have an idea, and started putting them on some of the photos. And I was like, that's the story, like that's what that is. And, a
Yeah.
lot of the moments in the photos, it was just trying to connect with the fear and the confusion and like trying to remember what that felt like. And a lot of those images were a lot of like sort of having my mouth covered, which was, coming from some of the inspiration images, but the covering of my mouth kept happening, and it just kept feeling like this idea of being silenced and sort of the quiet suffering, right? Because, it's, once it happened, I similarly, it was a friend of mine, and I invited him back to my house, and there was a lot of consensual things that happened before it took a turn, right? So, it just sort of was like, okay, like that's fine. It didn't happen. Everything's fine. It's sort of done. And then sort of in those moments in those photos was like, wow, that's not okay. Like, let me connect with how I not should have reacted, but the reaction that I wish I would have conjured in the moment, which was like, ow, absolutely not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, man, it's just, these are so, so powerful. And I'm so thankful that this is the way that you chose, or one of the ways that you chose to heal, because like we are all better for it. So I'll include those links in the show notes. But man, I tell you what, that is some powerful imagery. Like the words, seeing you with your face covered, like, I mean, when you sent me that link before we did the Fam Friday thing, I just completely lost it. Like when you were like, hey, so I like did this art thing because I'm healing. And I was like, sob, it's fine. So cool.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for that. So Christine, talk to me a little bit about like, what's the general mentality? Like, first of all, do you guys ever talk with domestic violence victims or survivors in person, or is it mostly like just advocating on their behalf?
Our programs work with domestic violence survivors. So we work with our programs. So we have survivors who participate in our organization, but primarily we're voicing supportive programs. And kind of in my department, we're advocating on their behalf. So we hear things from them. Anyone's welcome to email my boss and I anytime if you hear a bill or if you want to do advocacy and you want help. If there is a bill idea that you have, we'll help you run it up and help you get it through, or help you figure out the next steps for something. But really a lot of it is we do regional calls with all of our members. So anyone's welcome to join those. That's a member of our organization, and kind of working with programs to hear from what they're hearing from survivors. So I don't work a lot directly with survivors. I do work a lot with programs who support them.
That's awesome. And what would you say is your, I don't want to say favorite part, because I feel like talking about your favorite part of working with domestic violence survivors on their behalf is probably not the best way to articulate it, but like, what's the most rewarding or fulfilling part of doing this work?
I mean, I think it's important. I think someone needs to voice. I mean, every time I tell someone about my job, someone gets this awkward look and says like, wow, your job sounds depressing. Talking about domestic violence and sexual assault all day, every day, I say, someone needs to be doing this work. We need advocates in this work. We need people that are sharing the stories. We need people who are able to go to the Capitol and talk about what prevention funding is and why we need it. We have been doing a multi-year work on getting some prevention funds to programs because federal funding, a lot of it doesn't cover it. And we need to be talking to students about what's appropriate in relationships. We need to be talking about what's actually happening, sexting, things like that, ways to do it safely. We know teens are going to do it. What are you doing? And like, what's actually happening? People who are able to look at relationships and figure out way before you get to age 30, like I did, like what's healthy and like what's not in a relationship. And like, how do you help your friends, help your family, like educate each other, support each other in healthy relationships. Those prevention programs are essential, and we need state funding for them. We need housing for them. We need people to do advocacy work. So I get to talk on behalf of people that I really care about all the time, and I get to support programs. Since I've been there, we've gotten more funding for prevention the last 2 years. We've gotten housing funding. I get to support bills that make a difference. Last year, I worked on a really cool bill that was pets and domestic violence related. And as a result of that work, people will be able to take their pets with them when they leave in a better way, and get some reimbursement for that.
Awesome.
It's hugely essential because no one's going to want to leave without their animals, and people will stay in a domestic violence situation if they can't take their dog or cat with them. So anything we can do to make things easier and more survivor centered is essential. And that's what I get to do every day.
I love that. Are there, so I'll rattle off some sexual assault statistics like in a minute, but for anybody that's watching, and we have, so the audience here is a national audience. I'm excited that you're here in California with me. But what are some of the resources that are available like nationally, or where should somebody start if they suspect that they're in a domestic violence situation?
Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline if you're comfortable calling. There's also a national text line. It's Love Is, so I can send you that information as well. But those are
Perfect.
the two best resources. If you're Native, there's one, Native American. I'm enrolled Native American. There's a Native specific one, the Strong Hearts Helpline. Those are the three best resources. If you have questions about domestic violence, the National Network to End Domestic Violence website is a good place to start. It's got some good comprehensive information. But really the hotline is really a place where you can go and talk about what's happening, any concerns that you have. They'll help you safety plan, and they'll help refer you to a program to get more services.
That's great. Oh, I love that so much. And then does the organization that you work for take donations from the public, or is it mostly seeking funding from other private sources?
We do take donations.
Oh, good.
We would love your donations. We do take donations. It helps fund our policy work. It helps fund other work that federal grants won't fund. We've been really lucky in the past to do some great work with organizations to get some additional donations and things like that. So yeah, I will send you that information as well.
Awesome. And then what are some, are there any general statistics about domestic violence that could help put this into perspective for folks that aren't aware of how prevalent this is?
There's a tremendous amount of data. There's a huge, I think the most impactful one is for homelessness. When you're talking about this issue of homelessness and domestic violence survivors, I think 70% of people that are on the street that are experiencing homelessness have been a survivor of domestic violence or sexual assault. When you're talking, so those numbers are pretty high because of the amount of domestic violence and sexual assault that's impacting people's, willingness to leave their homes and end up homeless. This is a huge issue for domestic violence survivors. Housing is key because people can only stay in shelter so long. They end up on the street, they end up without steady places to live as a result of that. So I just saw a chat come through. So a police report or investigation does not need to be made for a victim to qualify for services. So you do not have to get that. You just have to self-attest that you're a domestic violence survivor. So they'll ask you some questions to assess if you need shelter. Safety planning is also a great resource. You can call the hotline and they'll get you connected to a local program. Even for a lot of the victims' compensation services, you do not need a police report. We are really working toward, especially this week, I think it's important to mention, really working toward making sure that there are options for people who are not comfortable using law enforcement as a methodology to get out of a domestic violence situation, to make sure that there are community resources, that a lot of people are not comfortable going through the criminal justice system, especially people of color. So yeah. I could grab you the domestic violence numbers in a second. I don't know it off the top of my head. It's a huge impact in California. Millions of people are being affected by this, especially people who are homeless. Impact.
I didn't realize that 70% of the homeless population has survived sexual assault,
domestic violence or sexual assault, or has been impacted by that over the course. Because when you look at the number of people that have been impacted by domestic violence or sexual assault, and you look at the people who are being forced to leave their homes because of that, or have experienced it throughout their life, I think there is a huge impact. And those are, that's a conservative estimate. It goes as low as 12%, as high as 90%, all the way in the middle. But when you look at over the lifetime of someone that's experienced domestic violence or sexual assault, it's about 70%. So Yeah, I'm so sorry that you were denied here in your state because of sexual assault, because you weren't, because you didn't have a police report. So that's not true of domestic violence, and certainly not in California.
Wow, man, that is such a trip. I'm like, I'm just blown away by what's 70%. I mean, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around that because I know what the homeless situation is in California, and it's just like,
Most of the people on the
I
street,
know,
yeah, most of the people on the street have been impacted by some form of domestic or sexual violence at some point in their lifetime. It may not be the reason why they're there now, but it is probably something that has happened throughout their life. So when we're talking about this issue of homelessness, we need to be talking about the issues of domestic violence, sexual assault, gender-based violence, and the reason that people are getting impacted. Because as all three of us know, it is not a one-time event. It is not something that you
no,
experience and then get over. It is something that impacts your economic abilities. It impacts your life. It impacts your ability to get counseling, to get housing, to get anything. It is continuing to impact everyone throughout their life, unfortunately. So it is a long-term event.
man. And then, so I know like some of the statistics from Rain that have just really moved me. Um, they collect data in 5-year chunks. So when I first started doing this work, they were saying every 90 something seconds someone is sexually assaulted. And then they got another batch of 5-year data. And so now they're saying every 73 seconds someone in the US is sexually assaulted. And that we know is not even remotely close to being fully accurate because of underreporting and all that stuff. Like, I didn't report, and I don't fit into that statistic because I didn't report. But like, 8 for me, the one that really was affirming and comforting, and also like, oh my God, this is awful, and the magnitude of how this impacts people. 8 out of 10 survivors of sexual assault were assaulted by somebody that they know. And I thought, I mean, for 11 years I walked around thinking that what happened to me wasn't rape because it was someone I knew. And in fact, 8 out of 10 people are assaulted by someone they know. So when we think about that, like, I think it's 1 in 3 women will experience sexual violence before the end of their lifetime, 1 in 6 men. Josh, do you have any kind of like statistics or any work or data that you have around this violence within the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, so the ones, as I have my own webpage pulled up to reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, about, so it's newer because the data around, obviously, LGBTQ people reporting is like super low. Right now, we think that about 40% of gay men reported sexual violence. And that's sexual violence that is not specifically rape. So the category of sexual violence beyond rape is 40%.
Yeah.
Is there any? Yeah, it's like yeah, it's like 52% of male victims. It's always someone they know. And also, not necessarily a percentage, but they've studied like high school boys, and high school boys that are LGBTQ are infinitely more likely to be victimized in that sort of way than their straight male peers, for sure. And
For
it's
sure.
interesting, and
So, yeah.
it's interesting
No, go
too
ahead.
that you talk about that it's like everyone, right? Like how big, because I think, the numbers, if people have a hard time connecting with the numbers, what I can say to that is it's literally like almost everyone you know. Like what happened when I started to tell my story, the amount of people that I know in my life that came forward to share that piece of their story with me. I mean, you look around, I'll be in a social setting, look around the room, and it's like all of you, like, and so many people don't know, right? If you're not a part of the survivor community, you might not have access to that information, right? It's something a lot of people choose to keep to themselves for good reason often. And it's just staggering the magnitude that really exists. That if you look around the room, whatever, if it is, when you think of 70% of people, right? Really look around a room. If you have 10 friends for a dinner party, that's 7 people at your dinner party. Like,
Yeah.
that's insane.
Yeah. It's insane. It's crazy pants. And that's like, and we don't even, and not everybody reports again. So it's like the numbers that we do have are staggering and disgusting and horrible. And we need to do everything we can to reduce those numbers. And also, it's probably like 2 or 3 times that at least, because not everybody reports. Like, it's wild. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here. Christine, where can we find you? Where, like, what are there any resources that you want to point the viewers to as far as domestic violence resources go?
Sure, you can go to our website. I'll put it in the chat. And then also
Perfect.
if you want to take action, I'll put a take action alert in there too, if you're comfortable with that. We're doing some budget advocacy right now to get some money for prevention.
Perfect, please, and thank you. I appreciate you being here. And Josh, for you, where can folks find you? And are there any resources that you want to point them towards?
For sure, yeah. If the website was linked, but that's imagesmail.com/survivor. And there's, in addition to the project, if you scroll down, there's some resources linked there as well. And then if you want to check out the project on Instagram, if you just follow the hashtag Survivor Project 2020, that'll be where a lot of the Instagram is shared as well.
Awesome. And you are on Instagram. Where can people find you?
Oh, right. I guess that's important details. It's at Joshua W. Kelley, Kelley.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Christine and Josh, if you guys are able to, we'd love to have you stick around for the group gratitude circle. If you have to split, we understand. I appreciate your time and thank you for bringing your energy here. I think this was a great conversation, hopefully with a lot of takeaways that will help a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So up next, I am so stoked to tell you who is here. Mr. Zion, please join us. Come on down. We're going to be talking. Hey, look at you. How you doing?
I'm chilling. How you doing?
Good. How was the protest?
It was okay. We kind of got out of there before we met at Mission High School in San Francisco. There's probably, I don't know, there's a lot of, maybe 7, 8, I don't know how many thousand people. There's a lot of folks out there. And then the idea was,
great.
When we left, they were starting to march towards the Mission police station. I had to come do this. So yeah, I'm sure it's going to change up the vibe a little bit now. It was very peaceful. Yeah. It was good to see like a lot of people, you know what I mean? Like this is an issue. It's interesting because I mean, my whole life I've been dealing with these issues, you know what I mean? As an African American. Right. And the other night I was making a playlist like of basically protest music that I grew up listening to. And I was tripping out because, you know, I had like Kendrick Lamar, which is a modern rapper. But then I had Public Enemy, which is 90s. Then I had Sam Cooke, which is music's from the 50s. Then I had James Brown in the 60s, 70s. And I was like, yo, this is a part of our story. And it's interesting because we've been living it. And now I hope that this is a breakthrough moment when the larger society starts to understand that these are not narratives that are made up or fake news, as they like to say these days. This is like an experience that's generational, and it's been like that, and it's been created this way on purpose. And it's ever since we were stolen and brought here against our will, it's been a way for us, and that this society is built on that. The blood of my ancestors, you know what I mean? As well as the blood of the Chinese, as well as Latinos, as well as white folks too, but Native Americans were the first ones to bleed here. So I hope that people are working and awakening to the historical context that we're living in now, that we can see the injustice through our phones and we can witness it. And it's not secondhand experience, like we can see it for ourselves. There you go.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the most important parts, because like for as much as we all talk shit about social media and how it's ruining the world, I think in this moment that we're living in right now, it's probably one of the most important things to help us see these stories firsthand, like you said. So talk to me a little bit about your, do you classify yourself as a conscious rap artist, or did I just pull that from your bio? Like how would you describe yourself and your career in music?
I would definitely say I'm a conscious artist. I've always been inspired by people that brought light to my eyes. Like I said, Public Enemy, it was one of the first groups I vibed to. KRS-One, the golden age of rap when like being conscious was cool. That's what I grew up on. And because at that point in my life, it was hard growing up Black, you know what I'm saying? Depending on where you were. But it's difficult, especially where I moved from the city in Philadelphia as a young kid into like Cincinnati, which was like a mixed neighborhood. And then I moved from there to Rhode Island, which was mostly Italian and Irish. Then I moved from there to Texas, where it was blatantly racist. Like the East Coast was not that bad. I had Italian families bring me in, one of my best friends, Robert Salento, and then the kid across the street, Michael O'Brien. Like, these were my friends and their families accepted me. Then when I moved to Texas, it was like nigga, nigga, nigga all the time, and like super racist against Latinos. So that's when that was 4th grade when I moved there. That's when I really started to feel the sting of racism. So when I heard hip hop at an early age, for one, it was like, okay, that's a distinct voice that like, it gives me, I feel like I'm cool now. For once in my life, I feel like I'm cool hearing somebody that looks like me do something I've never seen before. But then as I got older, it was like, oh, this is actually our voice. Like, I haven't heard anyone speak. Like, I started to realize I had never heard anyone talk about these things before that resonated so much with me. And it was like, oh, this is our news. This is how we communicate with each other, from Oakland to LA to Brooklyn to Atlanta to Chicago, all these different places. Now we have actually like a telephone wire running between us. And so I thought, for me growing up, that was the main thing it did for me. It strengthened my confidence in myself. It gave me a stronger sense of self-esteem. It exposed my brain to different thoughts and being positive in the midst of immense negativity. It helped me connect with civil rights leaders like Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, even Martin Luther King, getting deeper into his philosophies. And so it was something that really, it touched my spirit and it gave me purpose. And so, yes, I consider myself a conscious artist because I believe it is very important for us to remember where we came from in order to see where we're going. And in this moment, I think a lot of conscious artists are being like, okay, it's our time again, because obviously hip hop music it's been taken in a different direction. And I'm not gonna say it's bad, because we do have dope artists like Kendrick and J. Cole, Joey Badass. There's a lot of guys still holding the torch. But in general, I feel like it's become escapist. And so at times like this, it's like, no, like, we gotta stay on it. And I'm gonna throw one more thing out there. I feel like when Obama got elected, a lot of Black America kind of went to sleep and felt like, oh, it's cool now, like we're good. And we see that the reaction to that has been so intense and so like vengeful. It's almost like it's worse than it was before.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. So how has it been? So let's talk about, well, when was the last time you performed live somewhere for an audience? Because COVID happened, touring's not happening. So like, when was the last time you were up on a stage?
I believe in front of an actual crowd. I think at the beginning of March I had a show, or definitely at the end of February I was in Toronto for a show, and then I had the Oakland Roots show, which is a soccer team in Oakland. We performed out there. I believe the beginning of March. So that's the last time.
So it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. I've done a couple live streams, which is dope, but it's definitely different. You don't feel the interaction of the crowd. You don't see the people.
Right. So how is prior to the protests and everything with George Floyd and Breonna and Ahmaud and everybody else, what was quarantine like for you? Does not performing impact you in a negative way?
Definitely. I mean, financially,
right. Yeah.
I mean, that's very obvious, but I think also just, I'm a social person. The music industry, all my friends are mostly musicians. We like to get together and like, really my shows is when I hang out with my best friends. Like, you know what I'm saying? We work together, but it's like I work with my friends. So that's part of like, I look forward to going on tour with my homies. You know what I'm saying? Because then we get to have these conversations on the planes and the car rides. Like, that's because I got 3 kids and I have a lot of, other stuff going on in my life. So that's actually my social time in a way, as well as work. So not being able to do that, it was very much like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have that outlet. I'm pretty hermetic in general. Like, I stay to myself. I stay in the studio. I stay at home. I work out. I go to my Qigong class. All that stuff was still going. But coming home and then looking around and being like, damn, like, it took me, I'd say about 6 weeks to normalize and be like, all right, I have to use this time spiritually to tune in instead of I felt like I was numbing out for the first half, maybe. And then at that point, I was like, all right, if I don't tune in, meditate, chi up, and like really center myself, I don't know when this is gonna end, and I have to accept it as a challenge spiritually to really like look at my dark side and look at the shadow. Because
So
it
what
felt,
kind of
it felt
shadow?
like, go ahead, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you were gonna hit it, so go.
No,
Yeah.
you. I was going to say what I like that you referenced shadow work. So what kind of shadow work, if you don't mind me asking, like what has come up for you during this time?
I mean, I feel like really like deep things like worthiness. Like, am I worthy of praise? Am I worthy of love? Am I worthy of success? Um, Things with my parents growing up, like patterns that I hold to this day. Vulnerability with my heart, being able to open up to love myself, and love others from a pure space, and not egoistic, not trying to control. And really just like dealing with coping mechanisms, like getting too high. Like I'm gonna be completely honest and transparent. Like in the beginning of quarantine, I would wake up, smoke, lunch, smoke, dinner, smoke, and I'd be hot. Like it was insane. Like keep going around my day. I'm not this type of person. Some people do this all day, every day, but I'm not the type of guy to get high and then go shopping. And then, you know what I mean? Like I'm standing in these mega lines, 30-minute long lines, high, just like whatever. Like that's not really me. Especially like I'm a middle-aged man, and I had to look at myself like I have to really like take this on the chin and accept like I'm gonna have to deal with this pain I'm feeling in a different way, in a more proactive way instead of reactive, because I was trying to numb out the insecurity I was feeling about what was gonna happen. How am I gonna make money? You know, how am I gonna spend time with my kids if we can't go to this? All the skate parks are closed, all the basketball courts are closed. They can't go to school. I got a homeschool. My kids are going crazy. My kids are 9, 5, and 3. So the 9-year-old's good to go. The 5-year-old and the 3-year-old homeschooling is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm dealing with court because I was in court in the beginning of March for custody of my kids. So there's a lot going on. You see what I'm saying? And it took me a while, and all of a sudden I was like, I felt like God was like, I just woke up so depressed one day, and sometime in maybe like the first week of April or somewhere around there. I just was so depressed, and I was like, why do I feel like this? And I was like, well, you've been smoking for the last 28 days straight. That's one reason. But two, it's like, I realized I wasn't really dealing with the issues that I was feeling. I was trying to run away from them, and now there's nowhere to run. I can't distract myself anymore. And in a lot of ways, to like push the conversation further, I feel like this George Floyd situation, all of this is collective shadow work. These are things that have been there that we've been so distracted from that now everybody's sitting in quiet at home dealing with their things, and this comes up, and now people are forced to choose a side. Either you're with it or you're against it. Like sitting there being quiet and talking about my music only propels the oppression. Sitting in your little bubble at the house, drinking wine and doing yoga doesn't address what's going on for a lot of us out here. So I think it's like, it's collective shadow work right now that's happening.
Yeah, I like that too. That's a good, I like the idea of collective shadow work, and that phrasing makes all of this feel a little bit more manageable when you think of it in the context of doing shadow work versus just like, here's this thing and everybody's on quarantine, so everything's fucked and everybody's scared. Like we have an opportunity to really heal some deeply seated trauma in this country, in your community, in communities all around the country. So when we talk about lyrics matter, what does that mean to you, and how do you feel? Like, what is the opportunity right now with everything going on to really lean into intentional lyrics?
I mean, it makes me think of my boy Kamal, who lives in Bali, and he's like a deep meditation qigong guy, and he posted something that really resonated with me. He posted something and I reposted it on Instagram, and he was saying like, stop repeating "I can't breathe," like, because the word is a mantra, and we repeat these things over and over again, and we start to manifest. And he was saying, instead say, I can breathe. I'm breathing deeply. And like you said, lean into positive affirmation rather than like rechanneling oppression and suffering. We've had enough of that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like, as an African American, like the legacy in this country is misery. You know what I'm saying? And our pain is like packaged up and sold on a regular basis. Whether it's gangster music, whether it's pimp, whether it's hoe, whether it's precious, whether it's training day, when you get awards for these things, like, you know, the happiness and the joy is not something that's really promoted and sold in America. It's the pain that gets the money, because it affirms this is who you are. And so I think it's like the lyrics side is to really tap into a spiritual perception of, like, for me, on a personal level, I've had to tell myself when I get up, like, the universe is conspiring for my highest good. The universe is conspiring for I just repeat that especially when I'm feeling bad. I just say that over and over and over and over to myself. And I've never had to be so militant in trying to be positive. And I've been meditating since like 1990 something. Like, you know what I'm saying? But now it's like all that training is showing me that, like, nah, bro, you have to be super disciplined and diligent. Because for me, if I don't do that, if I don't tell myself positive things, if I don't lift myself up and surround myself with positive people, it's so easy to fall into the black hole right now of uncertainty, of not knowing where you're going, not knowing how I'm going to pay my rent next month, not knowing if, you know, I'm going to see my kids because something might happen where they close the freeway and these riots are jumping off and now I can't, like, it's a lot going on. And so I think lyrics matter is, for me, it's a way that I tap in with myself and all my friends, and we create positive music that when I listen back to it, I'm inspired to do more good for myself and my community, instead of listening to it and getting angry and amped. Fuck this shit, fuck the system. Like, yeah, I do feel that way. I do. But at the same time, I'm trying to create something that's like uplifting and yeah, let's go fight, but let's do it the right way. And let's not forget, like, the intention of love and being grounded in love and just being grounded, period. Because it's easy right now. There's so much energy. There's so much charge in the air that it's easy. Like, I mean, I'm working out with my boy yesterday at the lake in Oakland, teaching him Tai Qigong. And two dudes start fighting right behind us. And we're just like, bro, why are you trying to run up on this dude and fight right now? He's like, yo, he rubbed into me. And I was like, man, we're all on edge. You got to calm down, man. You got to give people like you got to be super compassionate to the point where my ego has to take a step back, or else, you know, we're all going to be out here shooting each other. So lyrics matter to me in terms of mainly how we speak to ourselves, about ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, and trying to change that inner dialogue and being like, instead of, oh, I can't do it, oh, it's fucked up, and being like, all right, this is an opportunity for me to learn something new. It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. I'm going to get through it. And speaking to ourselves in positive ways. And then musically, just giving people some affirmative, like, lift up. Like, I know it's hard, but we've been through it. Like, I look to my ancestors because I think about what they went through, like the brutality for hundreds of years, the rapes, the killing, separation from family, just treated like cattle, treated like property. And now they suffered all that, and I'm here. And I actually have a choice. And you know what I mean? Like, it's hard still, but it's not the same. It's not the same level. It's more of like a mental thing. So I still have an opportunity to build on what they left me. And so this is where, to me, lyrics matter comes in, because we have to trudge forward. We have to fight a good fight. Just because it's an evil system and it's negative and it's hard doesn't mean we have to, like, resort to devilish ways ourselves. That we can still be godly in our manifestation on this planet.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the ways that you've been able to find grounding during this period?
My main way would be meditation, at least once a day. If I don't, like right now, I really feel it. If I just sit and meditate, when I have the kids especially, I try to get up before they get up and sit like 15, 20 minutes. And if they're not with me, I sit for as long as I feel like. And that helps me it's like I have a cushion for my mind. Guys, I'm gonna hop out right here and talk in front of the house. yeah, I have a cushion for my mind to simply like not be so stressed and not be so tense. Secondly would be Qigong, which, hold on, I'm gonna say peace to my homies. Peace.
Okay.
They're dropping me off from the protest. We're getting out of here.
Thank you, friends.
I love you guys, man. Talk to you soon. Peace. I'm sorry, I'm messing this all up.
No, you're good, man.
Secondly would be Qigong, which is, to me, it's like alignment and breath work.
Yeah.
I've been training that for, man, about 10 years, but I just kind of reinvigorated my practice maybe a year and a half ago. And that's been something that, like, even during quarantine when it first started, my group would still meet up, a few of us, 2 or 3 guys out in the park in the sunshine or rain or cloud, it doesn't really matter. We show up and then just breathing, sitting there for an hour, 2 hours, just doing this intentional breathing postures. And literally it's about grounding. It's like your feet are on the earth. Yeah, I'm gonna stay here. Breathing deep, calming the nervous system. It's like such a blessing that I've learned that, and I have that practice. It almost feels like all these things I learned, because I started doing a lot of this stuff in the 90s when my college time in Atlanta, and it really empowered my music initially. If you listen to Mind Over Matter, you can hear it. I'm just like meditating 2-3 times a day. It's very like centered music. Like I listen to it now and I'm like, wow, I was really tapped in. And now all those practices have returned to me in a much more vital way, almost. It's like, back then I was seeking for like, I want to be enlightened, reach nirvana, Buddha, I'm gonna, Kundalini rising, like all these things, that are present. And like, as a young seeker, that's what I was after. And now it's like, no, like these things are so you don't go crazy. These things are so I can simply hold my life together and be a good father, so I can deal with my issues, so I can do the shadow work, so I can look and understand that my heart is compromised. I need to be more vulnerable, opening up to myself and to other people. I'm holding myself back, and being able to answer these tough questions inside myself, like, especially during a time like this when it seems like the whole world is shifting, being able to be, okay, I'm going to be the calm in the storm. I'm going to be in the center of it, and I'm going to be calm. Even though I see things swirling around me, I'm going to hold steady and breathe and know at least where I am and know where my boundaries are, at the very least, rather than getting caught up and I start to swirl and, oh, no, I don't know who I am anymore and I'm caught up in it. So that's what these practices have done for me. I'm like so grateful, and I really want to share them with people. And I need to step out and start sharing what I have, because not that I'm a master of any sort, but I think the basic knowledge that I have would be very useful for people in these times, because it's so stressful. I mean, it's almost unbelievable what we're going through. I don't know if in modern history, if we can really equate this to anything.
Well, and that's what I was trying to think back to, is like, is there anything remotely close to what we're experiencing now? Maybe, but not in the sense like we were talking about earlier, where everybody's at home, 40 million people are unemployed. There, like there's so many things that are like stacked on top of it right now, in addition to this injustice and the police brutality that's been happening for hundreds of years. You were talking earlier about choice and how you have a choice and stuff like that. So you were busy standing up with your community while I was reading my chapter, this because the whole thing about this campfire is I read a chapter and then we talk about it. So in this chapter I talk about, and the reason that I invited you to join us on this particular day is because I heard a lyric from Stick Figure, and it was from Choice Is Yours. And it's when Kyle says, the choice is yours, the choice is mine. You can't please everybody all the time. That lyric changed my life. Like, I was in the shower, I was getting ready to go film a documentary shoot about my life with diabetes. And I heard this thing, and I just realized, like, I've literally been living my entire life to make somebody else happy, to live up to their expectations, to do all these other things. Like, it was massively impactful.
Yeah.
Are there any lyrics that stick out to you over the course of your career that you've heard or that you've written where you're just like, damn, like that is my life?
I mean, there's so many, like, there's so many. I can't think right now. Oh, I feel bad. I can name songs very easily, like A Change Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. Like, that song to me, it will never go away because I feel like it really embodies the hope and the anguish of living in this country. But I think it's also indicative of the human experience, period. I think he really captured the feeling of like, you know, he's a great singer. I mean, his voice is beautiful, but then he's talking about like how he grew up. And then like, I want to go to a movie, but you're saying I can't go to the movie. Why can't I go to the movie? It's just such an innocent, it's almost the way my kids talk to me. Like they get it, but they don't get it. You know what I mean? It's like, they're like, Dad, why are these places boarded up? Why are they protesting? And I'm like, oh, shit. And I'm trying to explain why. And then I see my son's eyes go, and I'm like, am I telling you too much? And he's like, I'm uncomfortable. And I'm like, all right, I'll stop. And that's the hardest part, is that you just don't want to take away the innocence of life. You know what I mean? Like there's such a beauty. Like it's crazy. Like I'm in San Francisco right now. The sky is electric blue. There's not a cloud. It's warm for once. It's so beautiful. No, really. And like you look, I mean, I would show you, but it'd be like, I don't know if you can witness it through the phone on Zoom, but it's like such a wonderful day. And then there's people down there protesting because of all the situation. It's like there's this, I mean, the yin and yang and Tai Chi and all that, like there's all these like phrases and words to describe it, the balance of life. But to really, when you really sink into it, it's like, fuck, we're all dealing with this shit, man. Like there's good and bad, and there's beautiful and there's ugly, and there's pain and there's joy. It's like we all experience it. And I feel like that song captures that because it's such a bittersweet thing. Like it taps into my soul, it taps into my emotions. I could play that song at a funeral. I could play that song at a protest. I could play that song when I'm having a great day. And it would resonate in different ways, but every day, because I feel like he captured life in that song. And I wish I had more lyrics because all these lyrics are going through my head from this playlist I just made the other night about the protest stuff. And I don't think those are the type of lyrics we're talking about, but they still
well,
move.
I mean, if they are, yeah.
I mean, it's more of a certain type of mood I was trying to capture, like fight the system, fight, you know, Rage Against the Machine, Public Enemy, all these type of guys. And those aren't necessarily songs I listen to all the time, but for this mood, that's what I'm feeling. But there's so much music. I mean, a lot of Bob Marley's music resonates that way. Mostly things that like reference spirituality and really, you know, dealing with this in a way that's like, it's hard. We've been suffering, and no matter what, we're gonna rise above it somehow. Like whether it's my kids or me, or I'm willing to go out on my sword to fight for justice. Any of those type of things have always spoken to me spiritually. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have like one quote. I wish I did right now.
No, that's cool, man.
You caught me off guard.
So, do you have you created any music in quarantine?
Yes.
Are you stoked about it?
Yes. I'm taking my time with it.
Yeah.
I'm starting to mix songs down now, finally. I feel like it's been interesting, man. Like I said, like the first 6 weeks I was lost. And then I started, you know, cleaning myself up and started like really taking my meditation serious and not smoking weed all day. And then like my creativity was like, come here, like you need some medicine. So I've been recording way more. Yeah, exactly. No, seriously. Because really, I mean, my music is been like a bomb for me. Like in terms of like when I was a kid, I would put on like if I was heartbroken, my girlfriend broke up with me, I'd make a mixtape of all these love songs and like put them all in like, but it was like, you know that feeling. But it was like, it made me feel better. Just that I could play something that kind of, it would resonate with my emotions. And so right now it's the same thing, except I'm just creating the music and really trying to express my feelings. And a lot of what it is, like, it's not necessarily, yes, I'm angry, but it's not all anger. It's more like confusion and like, what do we do with this energy that we feel? How do I channel it? How do I maintain myself as a good father and not get all edgy? Because there's days when just looking at this stuff over and over and over, and I'm like, my kids ask me something, I'm like, what? And they're like, Dad, what's wrong? And I'm like, it's not.
This is what's wrong.
Yeah, like I've been looking at Instagram for the last 15 minutes and all the posts are putting me in a mood. And so it's really like trying to figure out how to be true to myself and create something that's authentic, that's really being truthful about the times we're living in right now and the situations that people are presented with. And just trying to create medicine for myself and hopefully share that with others and they can resonate with it. But there's no really set formula for how I'm creating. I'm listening to beats and I'm writing music. I'm getting a lot of features, thank God. It's helping me like stay afloat. People have been hitting me up for music and, and I'm lucky that I just got new management and it's so dope because like the first song they sent me like, yo, this group wants to do a song with you. I'm like, all right, send it. And I listened to the song and it's like, the lyrics are, I can't remember. Basically, it's like, the crown chakra will never bow. There's no way that they can stop us now. We have the strength to move a mountain. And I'm like, yes, like, thank you. Like, I'm writing on, like, there's these dudes I never met before. And this music is super positive right now, but it's like Rasta positive. Like, I'm aggressively positive right now. Like, I'm singing loud.
Aggressively positive. It's like, that's a mood. That's goals right now. Seriously, yeah.
I heard the song and I was like, it got me juiced. Like, thank you. Like, it's talking about the spirit of God and like tapping into yourself and having faith and trusting. And it's hard, but no matter what, we have this energy within us, this God force that we can always tap into and don't be afraid to tap into it. And like hearing that, I was like, yeah, this is what it's all about. It's about creating something positive that no matter what, I don't care where you're from, you might not like it, but somebody's going to listen to it and feel invigorated. Like, okay, I can do something. I can do something good for myself today. I'm going to get out of the bed. I've been sleeping in the bed for 2 weeks. I'm going to get out and take a shower and I'm going to go outside and I'm going to walk around and I'm going to talk to my friends, or I'm going to call my mom. I ain't talked to her in a minute. Or I'm going to go see my friend and give him a hug. Just like, we need that encouragement. You know what I'm saying? Another thing, I know I'm kind of going off right now, forgive me, but.
You can go off all you want. I got nothing else to do today.
I see you in that room.
It's my birthday, so I don't give a shit.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Blessings. But like, one of my girlfriend, her family, she comes from like a revolutionary family. And we're going through all this stuff and like, it's heavy. Some days are heavy. And she talked to her mom and her mom was like, listen, be happy, laugh, joke. Like, you have to be happy through these moments. You can't just be out here mad and angry and we're going to fight the system and I'm mad and I'm angry. Because part of it is like your energetic state of being, which I'm coming to learn is like, for me, it's important to have joy. Regardless of what's going on out here, when I see my kids, I need to be able to laugh with them. I need to be able to play hide and seek. I need to be able to pick them up and do jokes and we enjoy our space within that house. Because if I can't have that, then like, I don't know if I really have any happiness in myself. Regardless of what's going on out here, I have to maintain peace and love within myself. And that's a real big lesson for me right now because it's hard sometimes. It's hard when you look on the news and you're like, why do they keep killing us? What's the agenda? Why did this man get murdered like that? You know what I'm saying? Why did this woman get murdered for no reason? Why did that girl get pushed off the balcony? Why was that dude hunted down in the street? Why? Why are they so scared of us? But still, to have the ability to, guys, let's go get some ice cream. Like, that's a skill I've been developing, and I'm very thankful for it. Because I don't, it's still our lives, regardless of what's going on. Like, we are accountable for how we feel and our own happiness. And it takes maintenance. There's not, I want to be happy. If I get a beautiful woman, I'm going to be happy. If I get a beer, I'm going to be happy. Well, that'll last for a little bit. If I get a nice house or the Tesla I want, I'll be, well, these things come and go. If we can learn to maintain happiness within ourselves, maybe then we can actually create these things and just add on to what we already have as happiness within from a spiritual perspective. Yeah.
I'm hopeful. That sounds like a nice world. I'd like to live there. Let's do it.
I really
create
think
it.
I think we are in the creative stage though right now where we are on the planet. Like, I was talking to my Reiki healer last night and she was speaking about like, yo, this is that new earth that Eckhart Tolle talks about. Like, this is it. We're in it. You know what I'm saying? We're on like this cusp of, hold on. I mean, just let's just take a step back and like think about the way technology has changed our planet within the last 25 years. Like, we're in a whole new space, literally. Like, everything goes global within minutes. Well, my thought is I can post it or put it somewhere and somebody in Japan or Germany or Russia or Ghana can pick up my thought instantly and vibe on it and then respond. So we're in a sort of like a global telepathy somehow. Like, our thoughts are, we're all thinking at the same time. It's becoming like a hive mind in a way. And I think that it's incredibly important to be intentional with the things we create and put out there, because I feel like we can shape what's coming, or we can stay in the same mode and devolve. But I think life is all about evolution 100%. And growth. I think we can shape something better that'll fit for everybody. And I'm not talking about utopia. I'm talking about incremental growth and steps to become better as human beings.
What does that world look like to you, and how do we get there?
Wow. Now when you ask me that, I just have to go science fiction mode because I don't have any answers. I just have creativity.
Do it. Yeah.
I mean, I think that, quite possibly the monetary system is shifting under our feet right now as we see it. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I think that the power right now is being shifted into the hands of the elites even more than it was before. I feel like, at least in the United States, the middle class is going away. I think it looks like we're moving into a third world country. But I think that, it's funny, man. Like, and I'm just going with my thoughts now. My son, we live in the Bay Area. There's massive homeless problem here. I mean, there's tents everywhere. I mean, it wasn't even like this 5 years ago. San Francisco, yes, there's always been homeless. Oakland, not as much. There's been homeless there, but not like it is now. Like, there's cities erected all across the Bay Area. And like, he's like, why? If we have so much money in California, why are there all these homeless? I was like, Cody, one of these billionaires could solve these problems if they wanted to. One of them.
Just one. That's all it takes.
They choose not to. So hopefully we can develop a more compassionate spirit where we actually value human life over material items. Hello?
There he is.
Sorry, my friend from the protest called me. I gotta hit him back after this, but it's just like, I think that if we just valued human lives and we're compassionate, and I mean, this society was set up on a chessboard purposely. And the Roman Catholic Church has a lot to do with it.
during the age of the, Europeans coming into founding the new world, so to speak, and coming to America, going to Africa, blah, 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 colonization. That was all the church. The church has no problem with money. And I'm not really trying to talk about religion necessarily. I'm just really talking about the history of how we got here. And I think that chessboard was set up then so people could have control, and it's never really changed. And I think that if, there was some kind of barter system or exchange of goods, exchange of energy and goods rather than these fake promissory notes we pass around that aren't backed by anything except our consent, that would be a big shift alone. I just, man, I think it's really a spiritual thing. Like, I feel like it's good to see white folks saying, we don't stand for this. I hope it's not just a trend. I hope it's really.
I hope so too.
I hope it
sticks. We have an opportunity for it to stick.
Yeah, we do. And it's not about, it is because we're the symbol of it. It's not just about Black people. It's about life. It's about human beings. It's about.
Well, and I was telling my husband the other day, I was like, the second that this country can start protecting, prioritizing, loving human life as much as it loves money, it's a total game changer, right?
Yeah.
Like, the second we stop, like, and to your point about like energy exchanges instead of paper, like, if you think of, like, I love just as an exercise when I get frustrated about income inequality in this country, I'm like, so basically we've got a bunch of people that have stacks of paper that they're so scared that they're going to lose that they will put it in a building to protect it and lock it up. Like, that's what a bank is, right? Like, a bank protects pieces of paper, and we're like so obsessed with it and so beholden to it. Like, we should have a whole nother episode where you and I just go sci-fi on this shit and build a new world, because I like where your head's at.
It's crazy when you think about it, because like sometimes I drive around and I'm just like, wow, look at all this, and now how many civilizations came prior to this, and like they're gone, hundreds of years ago, 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, I don't know, it goes back and back and back and back. This is going to be gone eventually. You know what I mean? Like, what are we holding on to, and what are we building, and why?
Right.
And why if we have this new, it's like we're it's like the ego of humanity. Like, we're the apex predator, and of the apex predators, I'm the apex predator in the apex predators. And it's like, I eat any animal I want. I eat any insect. I do this. I conquer places. I'm seeing on Groupon, buy an acre on Mars. You know what I'm saying? I go to Mars, I colonize Mars. I go to Brooklyn, I colonize Brooklyn. I do this. And then it's like, okay, but what happens when the next apex predator stops down and says, oh, you thought you was that guy. No. I have more, this is sci-fi. But I'm saying, and it might be real. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but what happens when that happens? Now, are we all family now?
And now is it okay? Like, what will it take, really?
That's what I mean.
Like, when do we realize? What will it take? Because it hasn't stuck yet. So, like we've been saying, we have a real opportunity here for it to stick. And like that, when you were saying that you were in like numbing mode for the first 6 weeks, like I spent the first 2 weeks of quarantine in the fetal position, wondering how I'm gonna, like, we were a week into my US and Canada book tour, retreats, workshops, hikes all over the country, like spreading our message, doing the thing, everything we did last year, making it even better. And then this happens, and I was like, the reason that Hiking My Feelings was so impactful in such a short period of time was because we were taking people away from this and out into nature. And that was like, and now that wasn't available. So I spent a lot of time feeling sorry for myself, and a lot, like my journal, the one journal entry that I was able to write, because I couldn't even face my thoughts in my journal during that period of time. That one journal entry sounds suicidal, because all I did was just write down every crazy, negative, scary, death-related thought that was in my brain. And I was like, I have to get this out of my body, Yeah. And then, like you were saying, inspiration strikes. And I was like, well, I know I can't hike. I know I can't do these other things. And I know that we wanted to, like, because we were going to tour, but the way that we tour isn't going to be feasible for the foreseeable future now. So what do we want to do? What do we want to build? And in that spirit, now we're here and we're building a wellness center. And it's just like, this is a really beautiful opportunity, even though 40 million people plus are unemployed, even though businesses are boarding up either because of protests or literally boarding up because they can't open anymore. Like, everything sucks, but in the suck is a beautiful opportunity to create whatever we want, because this is a very different period of time. You know, like we could build the most beautiful world.
I totally agree. And like, you know, it makes me think of the idea that, you know, pressure forms diamonds. You know what I mean? Like, there's a silver lining. Like, I think I wrote this in one of my lyrics recently, is that like, so some of my greatest lessons have come from my darkest moments in my life. You know what I mean? Like, and it's unfortunate that I had to feel that bad, but out of that, I was like, okay, now I know that I can't do that. I can't go to those places. I can't go that place in myself. So therefore, I have to create something else to hold me steady in this way. And I think that's what we're experiencing right now. It's like you said, all these people are out of work. But when I go outside, I go to the park, people are jogging. I'm sure a lot of people are broke. I'm not feeling great about my money situation.
Not either.
But I'm out there with my friends, talking, we're running, we're doing Tai Chi. I'm hitting up people. When I get together with people, it's a good vibe. You know what I'm saying? And I'm making sure I get around people with a good vibe. So, but it's like, yeah, we're all suffering, but yet like, damn, life is not that bad. Like, damn. I mean, we're still able to, I'm surprised it hasn't gone. I thought this stuff that's happening now was going to happen in March, to be honest with you. I didn't think people were going to be able to stay inside without losing their minds. And it's interesting that this old wound of racial inequality in America that's been the thing to push people over the edge, because this thing has always been here. It's very interesting to me. You know what I mean? That it was the racial thing, because I mean, come on, man, it's always been there.
This isn't new. Yeah. So, it's like, this is some old
like
shit.
But it's an old wound that's never been healed. So now it's like, kind of makes sense that, all right, out of all of this, that's the thing, because it never gets dealt with. Just like when I'm sitting at home by myself, I'm like, it's my heart. Like, you know, I need to deal with this situation in my heart. Like, I've been closed up. I had a separation with the mother of my kids in 2018. So it's coming to stark focus in quarantine. I was like, damn, I'm just moving out of sheer survival rather than sitting and actually healing my wounds, like intending to what the problem is. And I think that's what's going on. So I think there is a silver lining to this thing, but we can't just sit back and be like, oh, it's going to work itself. No, it's time to
we have to actively create it. Yeah. We can't just sit and wait.
Which I think it sounds like, from vibing off you, with what you're doing. And I'm thankful that you reached out to me for this, because I'm doing that in my own way. And I'm looking for ways to like spread it wider and broader and with more depth outside of just music. And it's empowering to just see people handling this in a positive way. Like, even when quarantine started, one of my homies who I work with, who makes merch for me, out of nowhere, he hits me up. He goes, hey man, how much money you need per week to stay afloat? And I'm like, wow, like this would be cool. I don't know. And he's like, okay, let me see what I can do. And I'm like, word? He's like, yeah. Next thing I know, this dude is sending me money week after week, just on the strength of being a good person. I mean, that shit put me in tears. I was like, oh my God. Like, and then my other homie, he was a great producer, Bass Nectar, same thing. He's like, yo, what's up? I know you're struggling, man. We all are. How can I help you? And I'm like, fuck, man, there's good ass people out here. Like, regardless of the stress, and they're struggling too, they want to help. And that empowered me to want to help other people. Like, damn, I want to say something positive now. I was feeling like shit. This is in the middle of me feeling like crap, by the way. And just to have my friends like rally and be like, yo, what do you need, bro? I was like, damn, man. Like, it was like so uplifting. And I think that's what is required right now. Whatever little strength we got, whatever little extra love we got, to pass that around as much as we can. because we need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the next segment of this, and I'd love to have you stick around and tell us what you're grateful for, is our group gratitude circle. So if there's anybody in the Zoom chat that wants to participate, put on your video and I'll call on you. But in the spirit of what you were just saying about your friends that stepped up, what I'm really grateful for here is all of this space that we have. Like, we were in Joshua Tree when COVID hit, getting ready to host a workshop, and then everything just got canceled. So we came back to where we are here. This is the Reggae Ranch. We're out on 9 acres in Julian, California. And our friends Sue and Dustin bought this place last year, and they were like, hey, you have a home here, home base. Whenever you're not touring, wherever you want to do stuff, like, you can call this place home. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I cried for like 2 weeks. I was in the fetal position. I was feeling like everything's going to melt down and die.
Right.
And then we're walking up the hill, and Sue, one of the owners, she's like, we're walking up this trail that they cut, and she points over to this flat spot on the side of the trail. She's like, hey, that'd be a cool place to build something. And I'm like a tree house, a place to put a tent? Like, what are you talking about? She's like, or your retreat center. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And just, and then like out of nowhere, I was like, here's my chance. Like, this is my opportunity to build something that we want to build. This is like, and where we can do it. So I am so grateful for A, people that believe in the vision, B, people that can go through all of their own stuff. I mean, like, the story of both of the people that own this property is just heart-wrenching and affirming and inspiring all at the same time. And for them to have gone through everything that they've gone through and overcome what they've overcome, and then open up this space to us in the middle of a pandemic, like, I'm just so grateful for Sue and Dustin who own this property, because without them, we would be homeless in our van. By now we'd be real stinky because we used to shower at the gym and all the gyms are closed. So like, it would have been a real mess by now. So I'm just so thankful. So in the spirit of our group gratitude circle, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for my family and friends. Like, my sons, like, through this whole thing, I feel like really they're just them being who they are in their presence. Even through my 6 weeks when I was just, I would look at them and they'd be like, Daddy, let's go here. And I'd be like, oh, it would just soften me. It was like all this, and I would just like kind of melt down and just like, yeah, let's go ride scooters. And then I'm outside in the sun and I'm like, suddenly my energy picks up and I see a couple people I know where we're talking and they're riding. And it's like all that pain for the momentary that I had, it just kind of like slides to the side. Also, like, some of my best friends that I was with, my boy Deuce, my girl Mia, just like, I feel blessed to be surrounded with positive people. And they go in waves too. Like, they've hit me up like, yo, I feel like shit today. You know what I'm saying? And God bless, that's the day that I feel good and I can help even them out. And I hit them up like, yo, I'm going through it. They're like, well, yo, let's do this. Let's go to this. Talk to me, come over. Let's go to the beach. Let's do, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I'm just really thankful, man, for community. Even my Qigong guys, like, you know, they closed the Qigong class at the beginning of quarantine. And there's a few like real Qigong warriors that no matter what, they're going to practice. And I text my boy on Instagram. He's like, yo, we're going to be out there regardless. And just being able to have some semblance of regularity around my practice, I'm just super thankful, man. Cause I don't know, I live pretty much alone. I have my kids when I'm with them. I have 50-50 custody. So when they're not with me, I'm in the house by myself. And that shit was scary for the first couple of weeks. And I'm thankful that I can be like, hey, I'm feeling weird. Can I come over? Yeah, come on. And like, I always have a place I can go, or people that'll visit me, or just like to pick up my spirit, because it's really been tough. I'm feeling way better now with my spiritual practice, but I'm just really thankful for community around me, that I have people that I can reach out to. I need some Kangen water. Come through, man. Yo, I need tips for my neck is sore from my acupuncture. Check out this dude. Yo, I need da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, yo, what herb? Check this herb out. Yo, take this rock. It's a shaman's, it's a sorcerer's stone. It'll help you focus. Take this black tourmaline. It'll knock off the negativity. Like, this is all energies. These are all examples of things that have been happening the past few weeks that, like, I'm just so thankful for good people. Like, I know good people. And I'm super thankful for that. My friends aren't like, yo, fuck this shit. I'm gonna go break a window. Blah, blah. I'm gonna get jumped. None of my friends are doing that. And I'm thankful, because if I was having to deal with that energy, I'd be frazzled right now. And I feel like I'm actually in a better place than I was before quarantine right now. God willing, I can stay
Same.
here.
Which is so weird, and it almost feels like guilty to say that, but like you said earlier, like we have to claim that joy whenever we can find it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So that was awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Christine, what are you thankful for?
Really thankful for community. I also live alone, and I have very little human contact. I haven't been going into anyone else's spaces or anyone's coming into mine. So it's been very, very lonely. I got really sick earlier this afternoon. My friend came over to bring me a hair tie and help me out for a little bit, which was just, they wore gloves and a mask the whole time. And it was super helpful and healing. And I'm really thankful for that community and for the community here. To just be a part of. I think, my friends have found different ways to offer long distance support and things like that. And I super miss everything, and I miss human contact so bad, but, people have been really stepping up to provide community even in a long distance way. So I'm really grateful for that. And especially my friend who literally dropped everything today to come over and help me. So very grateful.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you have that available to you, because like community, I'm feeling that. Like this campfire has cultivated the community connection within the Hiking My Feelings family on a much deeper level. And then just being able to connect with guests like you, and Josh and Zion and everybody. Like I'm just so thankful for that. Josh, what are you thankful for?
Sure. Yeah, I'm finding it's getting progressively harder for me to show up for myself and show up for other people. And I don't think I'm alone in that. And so I'm really grateful for all of you for showing up for yourselves and each other tonight. I thought after this another long day of, I live in Washington, D.C., so it's, there's a lot going on right now in my city. And, sometimes I keep wondering, I just want to tap out. Like I can't do it. But every time I just like find that inner strength and keep going down that spiritual path and show up for myself so that I can continue to show up for other people, I am so grateful for everyone else that shows up for me too, because if you guys weren't showing up for me, I couldn't show up for you. So thank you for that.
Yeah, same. Thank you. Michelle, how about you?
The dog's barking, sorry. First of all, I wanted to share, let me see here. I turned my camera around, but I'm not sure if you guys can see anything. I think it's covered, so never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, there. My house borders Mexico. It's my house, a hill, the Rio Grande, and you can see Mexico like right here. So I wanted to share that view with you guys, but I couldn't flip it, sorry. But as far as what I'm grateful for having these conversations tonight. We had a lot of powerful conversations that needed to be spoken, especially right now at this time. And I'm grateful that we have this community to share our thoughts, to share our feelings, to finally let it all out, to just let people know, I'm terrible with putting words together, but yeah, I'm grateful for everybody that showed up today. Sydney, happy birthday. Woo, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's been a good day. So I'm grateful for that too.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Laura T.
I'm thankful for creativity. Thinking about everybody's different outlets, whether it's through Hiking My Feelings or is it Stephen or Stefan? His music and art. That I'm thankful for. Okay, Stephen. The different ways that, Joshua and Christine are helping people in creative ways, but really right now too, whether it's because of the shelter in place or the social justice issues that are coming up, that just the ways that people are being creative to support each other and to support certain voices. I really appreciate that. And I'm in the Bay Area. I'm in Oakland. So I really appreciate it here, certain outlets of creativity.
Awesome. Thank you. Jennifer?
Happy birthday, Sydney, first of all.
Thank you.
I'm thankful for the wisdom of others, especially during these times. You know, it's like we were fighting one virus and now we're fighting two viruses. And then, you know, for the people that have done like shadow work and are coming forth with their stories to share with others, you know, as educational, it's especially important during these times. So thankful for that.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Andy, what you got, my man? How are things in Chicago?
Hey, they're good. I went to another a car caravan on the south side yesterday, and then I was driving back and I swung by Wicker Park because I heard it got hit pretty bad and it's all boarded up. It kind of blew my mind actually. Yeah, I am grateful. I just got off of a call in the Feel Real community about something we had actually started a month ago, a bi-weekly call about racism, sexism, and intersectionality, and it's really beautiful because it's growing and it's evolving organically and feels like it was just the container the world needed, or at least this little sliver the world needed, and it's mostly like let's say a white discovery group. So there's actually a separate group branching off so that Black, Indigenous, and people of color can really have their space to like share their stories and do their work. And it's just so rewarding that all of that's emerging and expanding. And happy birthday.
Thank you. That never gets old. I love birthdays. Awesome. Then I think that's everybody. So thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Tomorrow's guests, we have Anastasia Allison. She's the founder of Kula Cloth. That's this little number that comes with your VIP Campfire kit. Jenna Selmer, she used to work in communications for the US Olympic Committee, did a lot of anti-doping work with the NFL and other major league teams. And Gabachia, who is in the world of exploring responsibly, she's working to make the outdoors more inclusive for people of color. And it's just going to be like one big mashup of like awesome jobs in the outdoors, what we're doing to make this place more accessible, more approachable, more inclusive, from different levels of things. So like Anastasia founded her own company. She's product based. Jenna's working on the tech side as the head of digital strategy for a company called Gear Monk, and they're putting on the first ever virtual trade show for the outdoor industry coming up later in June. And then Gabachia does a lot of volunteer work. We connected in Montana when she was working with the Corps up there. And she does a lot of stuff with Joshua Tree National Park Association. That's how I got connected with them for our programming at Joshua Tree. So we've just got a great lineup of guests tomorrow. Thank you guys for being here. If you're on YouTube, we'll see you tomorrow. And if you're in the Zoom chat and you want to stick around, we'll do our post-show chat after this. So thanks so much. If you guys have dollars to spare, hikingmyfeelings.org/give for one-time donations. And if you want to do the VIP pass or the all access pass, you can join us on Zoom for all the fun shenanigans before and after the show. You can find those tickets at hikingmyfeelings.org/campfire. And we will see you. Oh, shoot. I'm supposed to talk about Blaze Your Own Trail. We'll do that tomorrow. All right. Peace out, YouTube. We'll see you later.